Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hi-Fi Happy Hour. It is Friday, and it's that Hi-Fi girl coming at you right now. Couple of great announcements coming up in the top of the hour, but first, we're just going to wait for a few people to get here. I'm going to get on my cell phone really quickly, and I'm going to share this out because that's the cool thing to do to get more people to participate. Remember, if you're watching this on Facebook, please allow your permission so that we can see your name, because otherwise you show up in our chat as Facebook user. And while that's great, that's not, we'd like to call you by your name. Oh, my volume needs to be down. Victoria, what are you doing? Let me see if I can share this out. Hello, Punk Floyd Four Eyes. Okay, so that's the first bit of news that we can talk about. Oh, my light just went out. Hold on, everybody. It's been one of those days. Has anybody ever had one of those days where you're just like, waiting for Saturday to show up? I don't know. What light do you think is better? That's my issue. So, okay. For those of you that were following along, we did announce the winner of the Emico X Onstage Stands Godmother Series Celebration giveaway today, and it was none other than Punk Floyd Four Eyes. Mike, congratulations. You were number 7 when Mike rolled the dice. So very pleased about that. All the information is on Instagram. More show news is coming up. I can say this. For those folks who are interested, everybody should be interested. Go to thehomeentertainmentshow.com and you will see some massive updates on our website, including, yes, count them, three shows and some details on the group and some other cool stuff. So check that out. Next week, next week's guest doesn't have to do with this, but the guest 2 Fridays after that is going to be SVS, as in SVS Sound. And we are doing a giveaway for a really cool sound system. So stay tuned for rules on that. That's going to be Facebook and Instagram and available for the US and Canada. So just stay tuned. And if you're watching from abroad and you're thinking, phooey, if you have somebody in the US or Canada that you can have enter for you, that's perfectly legitimate in our contest rules. So just keep that in mind. So without further ado, I want to get straight into this because today is going to be an awesome interview. I'm super stoked to finally get this guy on the show, everybody. None other than, okay, so here's the story. I'm going to tell a little story about him and then we're going to bring him on. I can see him in the backstage sort of looking at me going, what is she going to say? Oh no. So as many of you know, the 2020 show was unfortunately shuttered due to coronavirus. And then in 2021, we were able to put together, we were the first show in the United States to reopen, and we opened a week before Governor Newsom opened the state. We were the second show in the entire world to open, and that is a very esteemed privilege that we have, and we took that responsibility really seriously. And we had a newcomer who was bringing back to the United States after, I think, 18 or 20 years, Zingali Acoustics loudspeakers, which are some of the finest speakers you will ever hear. And I had the great pleasure of taking a phone call from, what started out as being a random stranger, and now he's just a very cool person. And I'm so excited because James Dasteel is the US distributor of Zingali Acoustics. His company is called Reference Components. And I want you all to meet him because he's got some very cool stories and is going to tell us all about Zingali and why you should go check them out immediately if you haven't already. And I'm going to bring him in. That is his advanced warning. Hi, James. How are you?
You're too complimentary. That wasn't about me. That wasn't me you were talking about.
It was.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. And especially since some wine is allowed.
Yes.
I'm all for it.
Yes, absolutely.
Here's to the happy hour. Cheers, everyone.
Happy hour. Cheers, everybody. I'm in Vegas, so you're going to see my glass disappearing because this is, of course, my photo background. Because if you saw what was behind me, you would be sad. So this is very Wayne's World right now, what I'm doing. So,
okay.
I feel weird calling you James.
You know what? You may call me Jim.
Okay. Because it's going to just slip out if I just...
that privilege. You have that privilege.
Well, okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
No problem.
So I think we should start most recently and work backwards. So okay. You and I ended up on the phone while you were trying to consider coming to the show or not. I mean, because it really was a touch and go situation for a lot of our exhibitors. What's going to happen? Is COVID going to flare back up? Are we sure? Are we not sure? What's the mask mandate? How safe are things going to be? Right. And so totally legitimate questions. You ended up coming to the show. Mm-hmm. And this was your first show.
It was our first show.
Right.
Yes.
What prompted the Zingali reference components adventure?
Well, I would say it started when I was 14. If you really want to go all the way back.
So 4 years ago, basically.
Why? I think it was 6 actually, but.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I was at I was for a year at a boarding school because no one wanted me around at home. I'm kidding.
That's a different happy hour.
I was a handful. So the staff lived there on the property, and one of the dean had Macintosh set up with, I don't know what speakers he had. He invited all of us in to listen to music, and I was just mesmerized. And I said to myself, one day I'm going to get a stereo system with those bulbs, and I'm gonna have it, and I'm gonna enjoy it. So that's how it actually all started. Fast forward many years until about really just 5 years ago. I bought my first tube amplifier from Carry Audio. Mm-hmm. And I bought a pair of ProAct speakers, and I bought a couple of other brands. I then upgraded because my ear was getting better. The more I listened, the better my ear became. Mm-hmm. And that particular amp was high power, 120 watts with KT88 power tubes, but it didn't have the purity of sound that I wanted. And so the sales rep, Daryl Burke at Carry Audio, who's a great guy, recommended their monoblocks, single-ended triode monoblocks. And I could have either upgraded step by step, or I could have taken the leapfrog, because they had other amps that were intermediate. But I knew the same thing was going to happen. I knew my ear was going to continue to improve. Mm-hmm. And, when you just buy and sell as you're upgrading, you're really losing a lot of money over the years. So I decided the best thing to do would be bite the bullet, go for the more expensive gear, which for me was expensive at the time, more than I had expected to spend. And it was a great thing that I did that, because I'm a real fan of tube equipment. Mm-hmm. I love a single-ended triode amp. I also have a Carry Audio preamp that use tubes, 6 SN7 tubes, line tubes. And it's just very synergistic. I tried several different kinds of speakers, and I still knew that I needed something better. So ProAct announced their new K6 speaker coming out. So that was the speaker I was going to go for. And nobody here in the US would discount it. So I ended up talking with a dealer in the UK. And he says, sure, I'll be happy to work with you. He sends me pictures of PROAC and other speakers in his showroom.
Mm-hmm.
And to the right were a very interesting looking pair of speakers.
Right.
They were Zingali horn speakers.
Mm-hmm.
What is that? And he said, well, customers come in for PROACs and they leave with Zingalis. I'm like, okay. By then, he and I had multiple conversations,
Mm-hmm.
and I was able to tell that what he was hearing was exactly what I was hearing. We talked about the same model of speakers that I have, and I could tell that we were on the same page. And so I took a chance on these based on his experience and knowledge, and I bought a pair. Sight unseen, well, not sight unseen, but hadn't heard them.
Right.
And they came, and the sound was astounding.
Mm-hmm.
It was pure, clean, natural. And I was so happy with these speakers. I knew I had found something special, and nobody was selling them in the US.
Right.
Turns out this particular person has a long history with Zingali, going back 30 years. And so I said, hey, you know what? I love these speakers. I love my equipment. I love my system. I think people ought to hear these speakers because there's just something about them that's so pure. It's like, and it's not too forward sounding, like a lot of speakers are too forward or too shrill. Very natural sounding. And I just said, hey, what do you think? Do you think they'll let me distribute these? Because I think these are terrific. So he spoke with the manufacturer and they agreed. So I bought some inventory and away I went.
That's quite, I tell you, that story needs to be told more because it started when you were a youngster. Not that you're not a youngster now, but when you were a school-aged kiddo. And I think the thing that's so fascinating for me about that is you carried that experience through all these years until you finally actualized it.
Not that many years. Okay, just a few.
Well, no, like 6, right? I understand. I know. I get it. Right. But the point is that you did. The point is that you did, and I think right now in the industry, that's something that's so important that people can tell an experience like that they've lived, because what it does is it solidifies the fact that that is a possible path for others right now, because there's so many folks who were saying, oh, we have to bring in the new generation, or we have to bring in more women, or whatever. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you don't have people telling their own experiences and sharing it, how will other people know how to get into it, right? And so this is such a valuable nugget in that sense. So you got the Zingalis, they're there.
And I got them just before the pandemic hit.
Oh, timing is serendipitous.
November 2019 is when I received my inventory. I bought 5 pairs. And then I was preparing to do what distributors do. And then everything came to a halt.
Right.
For a while.
Why? Let me ask you this. Why did you decide to be a distributor, not a dealer? Just curious, if I may ask.
Yeah, actually, I actually struggled with the decision for a long time. I would have really enjoyed being a dealer, renting a store,
Mhm.
having equipment there, working with the customers,
Sure.
and having that one-on-one contact with the end customers, who are the ones who would be enjoying the system in their
Right.
homes.
Right.
However, what I came to realize is, first of all, it takes it takes it takes quite a commitment to sign a 5-year lease
Yeah.
and do all of the tenant improvements
Right.
and really set up shop. I would need other brands. I would need to sell other equipment.
Mhm.
And honestly, I just didn't have the depth of experience and knowledge that so many dealers have.
Hmm.
So it seemed to me to make more sense to distribute and
Fair.
let dealers who really know their business
Right.
carry them.
Fair. I mean, fair enough. That makes sense. And plus, you get to. I think in some ways you get to avoid some difficult customers. To be fair.
Well, there are difficulties on both sides
That's
of the
true.
business, and
Yeah.
you're always up against some challenges, and um, that really wasn't a deciding factor for me. That would have certainly come up had I done that. We would have had some stories by now to talk about,
I'm sure. I'm
but no.
sure. Okay.
So
Excuse me. Mm-hmm.
so I loved going to your show. I mean, I knew that the best way to introduce dealers was at a show.
Right.
And so I had to just wait.
Right.
And your show came up. I'm in Los Angeles. Your show is in Long Beach.
Mm-hmm.
It was a no-brainer.
Sure. Sure.
So when I spoke with you
Right.
and found that there was an opportunity to get a room, I just jumped on it.
Well, we are so glad that you did, because I tell you, for those of you that were not at the show, uh, I could not. I was trying to bring people into your room because we had listed you as technically as a premiere. It had been, has it been 18 or 20 years? It's
Yes.
been
Yeah.
some long amount of time since
Yes,
Zingali was
that's
here
correct.
last, right? So it's technically a premiere. And I mean, people could not get into your room,
Yeah.
literally. And it
Mhm.
wasn't just because of the social distancing requirements. I mean, the room was appropriately and safely packed.
Yes.
And there were people milling about outside. And as soon as one person would leave, it was amazing. They'd be engaged in the deepest conversation. They'd see somebody coming out of the corner of their eye and they'd go, hold that thought. And they'd run into your room.
It
And there they would
was,
stay.
yeah. I was so pleased and pleasantly surprised. And I had a ball. I had a great time.
Well, they were very well received. I mean, what was some of the, can you share? Because I had to run all over the place
You were busy.
doing what I do. So what were
Right.
some of the best pieces of, like, the most memorable pieces of feedback that you received from visitors?
Well, I received constant feedback.
Mm-hmm.
So at shows, experienced audiophiles, they know what they're hearing when they walk into a room. So even before they walk into the room, they can tell in 5 seconds if what they're hearing and if they like the sound or they don't. And typically, and I've done the same. I walk into a room. I want to be respectful. I don't want to just spin on my heels and walk right out, even if I may feel like it in some rooms.
Sure.
So I hang out for a minute or two and then thank the exhibitor and I walk out. And there were very, very few people who came in just for a minute or two and left.
Right.
I had so many guests coming in and just sitting through an entire side of an album.
Right.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Somebody actually just posted, they found the stereophile review that Jason gave, and they
Yes.
posted it for everybody, all the viewers to watch. I just want to read it out. Quote, I
Okay.
can't get over how full and wonderful the violin sounds, scribbled the Serenus. Quote, it makes me want to listen, listen, and listen. The soundstage was to die for. Stereophile, Jason Victor Serenus. That's very high praise.
And yeah, it was exceptional. And he also referred to the sound as magical.
Yes.
And
yes, he did.
You know, I don't think that was just a casual tossing of a word. I think that audiophiles are familiar with the quality or expressed by the word magic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something that you can't put your finger on, but you know it when you hear it. It's
right.
like magic. And yeah, that I was so happy with our room, and there was a lot of work went into.
Oh yes.
Getting that sound to sound the way it did.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
It did, but it paid off. It really truly paid off, I think.
It did.
In a lot of ways. What do you say to somebody who, I mean, Zengalis are not, well, let's put it this way. They are top craftsmanship, top R&D, top development.
Mm-hmm.
And so they carry a price tag that is commensurate to the quality of work that goes into them. As such, there are many people that I think probably it's on their wish list, right?
Mm-hmm.
What
Yes.
do you say to folks who feel that they might be out of reach? Are they out of reach? Is there a way for to keep stair stepping on up there? What are some
yes.
some words of wisdom that you can offer for that?
Well, sure. Zingali carries a full lineup, and I chose to exhibit what is called the Model 20 because it was released at the manufacturer's 20th anniversary. 10 years later, it was updated to the 30th anniversary edition of the 20 loudspeaker. I felt that for the best audiophile experience that I could provide at a show, that this was the particular model that I thought would just blow it out of the water, which is what happened.
Right.
However, there is an entire line that goes starting at $3,000. There are bookshelf speakers. There are
Right.
floor standing speakers that are a little bit smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So there are ways to step up. Those will be coming in. I don't have those at present. Those will be coming in, but there is a path up if Zingali speakers, the type of speakers they are what somebody likes.
Right.
They definitely can get in at a lower price point.
So talk to us about. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a much higher price point too.
Sure, there always is. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah, that's stratospheric. Zingali has something very special that they offer is the wrong word, but it's the special part of the speaker that makes it the speaker. And it's not just that they're horned, but it's the particular way in which they create it.
Correct.
And that gives it such a distinct, I mean, I sat in that room while you were testing it for, in and out for a bit. And I just remember the sense of peace that I heard. It was like the speakers were not only emitting sound, they were emitting emotions.
Yes.
So let's talk about what makes Zingali special and unique in this way, because they really are.
Okay. Horn speakers, and in many cases rightly so, have garnered a reputation for sounding harsh or tinny or shrill or thin. And not all horn speakers have those qualities,
Right.
but a lot of them do. What Zengali has done with their design to completely avoid any of those negative attributes is first the geometry of the horn is a little different than others,
Right.
and the fact that they are made from natural wood. The horns
Yes.
are wood, and so there is a compression driver, but the horn, which acts as a waveguide, is a natural wood material, and so it resonates like a musical instrument does, like a violin.
Right.
And the resulting sound is extremely relaxed and natural. Also, the construction, of course, the geometry and the design of the cabinet, but the materials that are used for the baffle and the cabinet all come into play. There is a natural resonance that these speakers take on, and
Right.
that's a very important part of the sound. So what you heard, that naturalness, that ease, it's designed into the speaker.
Yeah.
Now, there is a particular characteristic of horn speakers, which all audiophiles know already, and that is it allows a speaker to be made with a very high sensitivity number, which is expressed in decibels. Many speakers are in the 80 dB range. These speakers are, depending on the model, between 96 and 98 dB sensitivity. What does that mean? The benefit of that is you can use a lower power amplifier very successfully. The amps that I had at the show only put out 27 watts. I got all that sound out of 27 watts. And a lot of people will say, "Are you that's nothing. You can't make a speaker
Right.
sound 25 to 30 watts."
Right.
And these are floor standing. These are 4 foot tall, 12-inch drivers, floor standing speakers, and they absolutely sounded amazing. So there are opportunities that you can take advantage of when you have a high sensitivity speaker, like I have, if by using tube equipment or lower power equipment that might have a nicer sound, but
Right.
doesn't put out 200 watts.
Right. It's interesting because I found that, I'm fairly sensitive. I wouldn't say I'm the most sensitive person when it comes to listening, but I'm fairly sensitive and fairly intuitive because of my background in music. And I can sit in front of a setup, and there are times when I can feel the system working. Do you know what I mean? You can feel the system pushing air, pushing vibration. And then there are systems that you get in front of, and you just sit there you go, okay, great, come back tomorrow. I'll be here. Phenomenal. And
Right.
really, the Zingalis, I feel, deliver that because they pack a punch, but they also sort of bring hugs. And, they've got quite an emotional range to them.
Yes.
I would like you to talk about what you feel pairs best with those and why, because I know people are going to, as they investigate it, they're going to want to know if it works with their setup or if they need to look at something else.
Well, of course, it'll work with the Zingali speakers will work with any equipment.
Sure.
The thing about these speakers is they are able to produce a natural but also very detailed sound. And it's sort of like if you have, I think a lot of people have experienced this. They buy an audiophile quality system,
Mm-hmm.
and they play some tracks that they've played in the past and really enjoyed, but their system is so much better and highly resolving that now they can hear that the recording wasn't engineered very well. They can
We were
hear
just talking about that the other night, weren't we? As a matter of fact. Did you listen to the Stones track that I talked about?
I did.
And what is your honest assessment? I need to know this.
It was incredible. You could hear I did stream it, but I chose the original recording because I find a lot of times that remastered recordings lose something. There's sort of a veiled quality to them.
Right.
So I found the original release, and you can hear that the recording was done. It was sort of like a period piece. You could tell it was out of the 70s. And that's sort of really added to the whole mystique of, the Stones and rock back out of the 70s.
Sure.
And it just sounded incredible. It sounded great.
Did it really? Are you really saying that? Because everybody tells me that that's the crappiest test track. And I have to tell them why I use it all the time.
Well, it sounded great on my system. So that's all I can tell you.
There you go.
Now, I'm a tube guy, but I know that there are some very good quality solid state pieces of equipment out there. I think the thing to keep in mind is the Zingali speakers have the ability to show off the best quality that a person's equipment can produce. These speakers can keep up with the best. So you can use any equipment you want with these, and it'll be an improvement. And then, I mean, these are keepers. These speakers, you buy these and you keep them. You can upgrade your preamp and your amp or your cables. These speakers will make the most of any upgrade that you do.
Right. I think that's so great. So for the folks that are asking, we were pre-interviewing the other night and we were exchanging audiophile, I won't call them horror stories, I'll just say they were audiophile feedback stories. And my favorite Rolling Stone song is Give Me Shelter, which was released in December of 1970. So very early in the 70s, as far as the 70s go. And I'm just telling the audience so they know what song you were listening to. And so for those of you that, pardon me, for those of you that have heard the track, why there are a fair amount of folks that would turn their nose up at requesting that at a demo. But I like to go against the grain, and I have my own reasons for doing things. So I asked Jim to test it out, And he did. And I'm quite pleased that you came back with this assessment rather than like, oh, that's an awful, why would you ever pick that song kind of a thing. So
Well, it's a song it's a track we all know,
yeah,
and
for sure.
it's such a classic track. And like I
Yeah.
said, what was revealed was the recording equipment at the time
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
the engineering at the time, and so you could hear all that. But whereas some people might think that that's just not very high quality, I preferred to appreciate it as like a time capsule experience.
Yeah, it,
Yeah.
it it really is. It is. It's much like the thing about the Stones for me is it's weird coming from classical music because everything in classical music is just so. And
Yes.
then people assume that I'm a huge Beatles fan, and I like the Beatles, sure, but I mean, you put me in a room with the Stones and I go nuts. And it's so funny because the first half, maybe 2/3 of their career, Keith Richards was out of tune for a lot of it on his guitar. And he was also out of step with
Mm-hmm.
for some of it. And that's not a criticism in as much bashing them, but it is very much a time capsule thing. You're right, to go back and
Yeah.
listen to that and say, that is so cool that they just let that they thought it was neat, they thought it was the way to do it, and how wonderful that is. And it really encapsulates the music and keeps it alive, I think. So I know we were talking about classical music. You're a big classical buff.
Yes, I am.
Are there new classical releases that you are hot on the trail of that you want to recommend to people?
Well, there are so many different types of classical music. I happen to love violin and orchestra, some chamber music, but cello, piano. The album that Jason Surinas wrote about
Right.
was an album that he had, I think, just in the previous month reviewed for Stereophile.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to have it. And it was
Is it the Beethoven?
it was called the name of the album is Paris,
Uh-huh.
with Hilary Hahn playing violin. I mean, she is just, I mean, her playing is just gorgeous. And I had the album, and he came in and he said, well, what are you going to play? And I said, no, I don't know. What do you want to hear? And he said, no, you just put on whatever you want.
Right.
And I said, well, I don't really know what to put on. We went back and forth. I said, here are my albums. Why don't you choose whatever one you want?
Right.
So he sees Paris album, Hilary Hahn. He says, oh, I know that album. I just reviewed it for Stereophile. I'm like, great. So that's what he was listening to. And it is a gorgeous piece. These Zingali speakers are great with any genre, but there is an extra magic with these speakers when you're listening to classical, but also jazz and jazz vocals. I know that everyone is sick of hearing Diana Krall, and so nobody plays her stuff at shows anymore. But her recordings are amazing.
They are, absolutely.
Her vocals are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And, whether it's she's singing or Jacinta, or, I even have some Natalie Cole albums. Jazz vocals just come alive with these speakers. They're just the performers. I know we've heard it all before. Oh, sounds like they're right in your living room.
Right.
and in for many systems that's true, but you hear vocals on these speakers, and you can practically reach out and touch the performers in front of you. It's just astounding.
I'll tell you the thing that really got to me, besides the sort of the pushing out peace element about the Zingalis. For me, the mark of a good loudspeaker, the mark of a proper system, but more so the mark of a good loudspeaker for me, is that you can hear the space between the notes, and you can hear the dimension of the space between the notes. So it's not just that you hear the silence, but you can feel the depth, you can feel the width, right? You can feel all that. For me was key, especially because you didn't have a big like ballroom. You had a standard size exhibit room with your rows of chairs, and then you had your table and everything. And so being able to present that in a room of that size was astonishing. Really, it was absolutely out of this world in a very good way, and that's something that I can still remember.
Right, and I have to say that give credit for the setup to a local guy, Jay Nakamura, who's been in the business for 30 years. And he worked for quite a bit of time at a dealer in Santa Monica. He's just like a wizard. And yeah, I wish I could take credit for that room, but I can't. It really was Jay. All kinds.
You had a little bit to do with it.
I had a little bit. I want to give sort of a big picture of my experience and what I was able to produce at the show and how it's just all come together. Because I've thought about it. It's not because I have a ton of experience, that I have the most critical of ears, that I know so much more about how systems work. It was just all like serendipity. It just all came to me. I was connected with the right people. I stumbled upon, the right components. It just, I don't know how it happened. It just has all magically come together. And, I've made choices and decisions along the way. And it just all has come together. It's just all worked. So, I don't know where that comes from, but it just has.
Well, I think that's wonderful, because that just shows that in audio, I think so many people, you're the one that sent me, I'm going to out you. You're the one that sent me this meme that said audiophile. What was it? It said audiophiles want you to listen to their system and not to their music, or something like that, right?
It said that audiophiles use your music.
Oh, right.
To listen to their system.
Right. And
instead of using their system to listen to your music.
Right. And I have to say that is quite prevalent. It absolutely is. But what's interesting is, as I sit here and I listen to you speak about your journey and your choices and your connections, the connectivity of it all is really the key point. And I bring up that meme that you sent me, A, because it's funny and true, but B, because what this does is it really puts you, I can't believe I'm going to say this, this really puts you in the next generation of audiophiles. Because the way that you think about, and it's funny, because I think a lot of people who work in the industry professional assume that the next generation is some 20-year-old punk kid who's into streaming and they want to have a DAP and they want to have HeadFi and like the whole thing, right? But the next generation in my world is all about those who have no who have new thinking and who have open thinking. And I feel like the path that you've traveled, whether by choice or by accident or whatever, good fortune, whatever it may be, has really taken you to this place about connectivity, and whether it's people, whether it's components, whether it's meshing of the two, there's this harmonious balance. And that's something I think that our industry needs a lot more of, because so many people are singularly focused and they're not focused, like you said, holistically or harmoniously on getting the pieces to fit together seamlessly, right? They sort of force them together because it looks good, or there's whatever background stuff is at play or whatever. So to somebody who is getting into audio, because we have I'm very proud that my Hi-Fi Happy Hour has a very young crew that watches, and some of our crew is extremely experienced, like mind-blowingly experienced, and some of them are brand spanking new, but they're all mutually supportive and they're all encouraging. What can you say to folks that want to get their friends involved who may or may not be as fervently interested as we are? Like, how can we bring in our, other than to go to Jim's office to listen to the Zingalis, like what else can we do if you're not there, if you don't answer the door?
I think that, it was like my experience when I was 14. I just heard it. Yeah, I heard the sound and it just inspired me. And so I think the best thing is for people to go to dealers and get demos, listen to equipment, go to shows, although it's much easier to go to local dealers than a show. Those don't come around a lot. But yeah, I would say go in, spend some time, and trust your gut, because that's what I have done. A lot of people have a lot of opinions, and reviewers have their opinions. But when it comes down to it, it's what inspires you, what works for you. And the only proviso I would add to that is there is a learning curve for those who are new. What I experienced is the more I listened, the better my ear became, as I mentioned before. And so I think it really just takes finding dealers that are willing to demo their equipment, or hanging out while other people who are, maybe you're not a serious buyer, but there are serious buyers there, and the dealer is demoing their equipment to those people who are about to drop, $10,000 or whatever.
Right.
But you can be there, and just listen. Listen to the different speakers, listen to the different preamps and amps. And as you spend more time hearing the music and hearing different systems, you'll really start to learn a lot. So that's what I would recommend.
Why is it important? I mean, I know why, but I'm going to ask for the sake of the conversation a two-pronged question. One, why is it important to arm yourself with the knowledge? And not information, because information and wisdom are two different things, everybody. I'm just telling the world this now. There's a lot of information out there. Not all of it is wise. So why is it important to have the wisdom and the education? But also, why do you think it's important to spend, I'm just going to ask it like this. Why is it important to invest in audio?
Yeah. Well, because anyone who has been to hear live music knows that the experience can be amazing, and it can move you. And there's a difference between, listening, at some music and really have the music sort of envelop you and permeate, your soul, and you get caught up in it, and you have this emotional response and connection to what you're hearing. And that's what I would, for lack of a better term, audiophile quality components system can provide. And so that's really the experience that you're looking for. And I mentioned this to you on our call that, I like to go to hear classical music downtown LA at Disney Concert Hall, the LA Phil.
Yeah.
And before I sort of developed my ear and spent more time listening to my system, I could sit pretty much anywhere in the music hall and go, yeah, this is great. This is nice. I like it. It's often the case that if you have a good system and a good recording, it is a better experience than live. And a lot of people might disagree with that, and that's fine. Unless you're buying the $300 tickets and you're center front orchestra, 10 rows back. Yeah, okay. But what I found is I can't sit in the $40 seats anymore. So going to hear live music now is more expensive, expensive endeavor, because I'm comparing what I'm hearing to, what I hear in my own system, and it has to be better.
It stands to reason if you think about it, because when you sit down to listen to music, ideally there's a sweet spot where you sit, and the same would be true.
Yes, sir.
Practically speaking. I think the same would be true in a live setting. I mean, nobody wants to go sit in the corner in the triple Z section. That's just
weird.
I
think that depends. Yeah, but that depends on the venue as well. Now, Disney Concert Hall happens to be just an amazing concert hall, acoustically incredible, and you get great sound quality almost anywhere you sit in there. But that sort of brings me back around to the whole thing, is that regardless of the genre of music that you listen to, you're listening to music that moves you, music that you love. And a stereo system that's well thought out, it's the components are very compatible, and the quality is high. Just takes you into the music in ways that you never experienced before. And it's hard to, there's really no other experience quite like it. So, and you'll know it when you hear it. You go into a dealer that has good equipment, good system, they've set it up properly, you'll know it when you hear it. And, go to different dealers, go listen to a variety of equipment, and don't worry about what reviewers say or other people's opinion. Just trust your experience.
Right.
Feel your experience. That's
what
it's all.
And trust your ears, because there are some dealers that, not to bash on dealers, because there's lots of great ones, but there are some that tell you you're listening wrong. And
well, it's just... I understand. That's right. That's right. It does take some time to develop your ear. And
Yes.
speakers that at first you hear them for the first time and they sound so clear and so there and in your face, and you're like,
Right.
wow, this is incredible. If you listen to those speakers over and over and over again, you might start to feel that it's fatiguing you. It's getting a little hard to listen to them. They're maybe, after all, they're a little too bright.
Right. Yeah.
That's why you have to spend some time. You have to
Sure.
spend some time in front of systems.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, final question before we head on out, as it were.
Yes.
What is Reference Components working on now? What is 2022 going to bring for Reference Components and Zengali here in the States, or here in North America, I should say?
Well, I think the main thing is that more people need to hear these speakers.
Sure.
Because these are not typical speakers. The sound is not what most speakers sound like. And so, the plan is to be at shows, invite as many dealers as possible to come to the room and hear what these sound like. And hopefully they will want to put a demo pair on their floor in their store, so more customers can be exposed to them. So that's the game plan.
I love it. And will you be back at the show? Maybe.
You bet I will.
Yay!
You bet I will. Absolutely.
Then everybody come to the show in June.
Yes.
And definitely go to Jim's room and see Zingali Acoustics, Reference Components, and ask him to play the Rolling Stones just over and over and over for 3 days straight. Just Rolling Stones all the way.
And as good as my room was, and it was incredible.
Yeah,
I had
really
other reviews.
Yeah.
Johnson Lee at Part-Time Audios. He couldn't rank me in the top 3 because he came in with a thumb drive and said, "This is my playlist.
Right.
This is what I'm using with everybody. Can you play it?" And I said, "Sorry, this is a total analog system. There's no place to plug in your thumb drive."
Wait, was that Johnson Lee or was that Neville? Was that Grover Neville?
It was Johnson Lee.
Okay, from PMA. Got it.
From PMA. And that was the highlight of my experience, because he just was, you could tell after 5 minutes, he was on another planet. He was somewhere else. And his body was like moving with the music. He was gone. That's the experience I'm trying to talk about.
And he brought his wife too. I remember.
Yes,
I don't know if he brought his wife into your room, but she was there.
Yes.
Did
she was
she stopped in as well? Yeah. She loved it. She thought it was amazing.
Absolutely.
Okay, wait. One final final question.
As good as as good
please.
as that room sounded, next time around it's going to sound even better.
Well, we will.
Yes.
We will talk about that and those accommodations shortly, I'm sure.
Okay.
Hi-Fi Turtle has a question. His question is, what about Inspector Clouseau? I told you it was out there.
Are you really going to make me sound like Inspector Clouseau?
Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, and the hat came out.
I will tell you one experience I had. I was checking into a hotel one day, and I went, this was in Germany, I went to the innkeeper. This is white-haired guy. He's reading a newspaper. And I woke up and I said, "Wie geht's?" He says, "Wie geht's? Do you have a room?" A what? Do you have a room? I don't know what a room is. looks it up in his dictionary. A Zimmer. Oh, a room. Yes, that is what I have been saying, you idiot.
And then he goes, there's a little dog next to the front desk. Checks in and he says,
Oh, nice doggy. Does your dog bite?
the innkeeper behind his newspaper says, no.
Oh, nice doggy. I thought you said your dog does not bite. That is not my dog.
Just stupid, hilarious stuff. I love Peter Sellers, love the Pink Panther. You can watch those over and over again.
Well,
And you're
somebody is recording this, and I know that this is going to
rolling on the
become an
floor.
internet. I mean, we have that hat, he he he, that was great. Applause, 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 laughing face, 10 out of 10, applause, applause. People are loving this. That's going to be your thing at the demos now.
Oh,
Inspector
okay.
Clouseau demoing Zengali.
I'll have to
That'd
come.
be great.
I'll have to wear my trench coat.
Oh, Lord have mercy.
Absolutely.
Well, yes. Fair enough. Somebody find a small dog and bring it to
Yeah.
the show.
One that bites.
One that
Yes.
bites. Yes, exactly.
Right.
Anyway, James Dasteel of Reference Components. Thank you so much for being my guest tonight on Hi-Fi Happy Hour. I hope you had fun.
I had a great time. Thank you.
Excellent.
It was just terrific.
Thank you for busting out the Inspector Clouseau. Now everybody knows that it's a true thing.
Yes, I know that.
So thank you everybody so much for watching. Stay tuned next week. Next Friday, my guest is none other than Gene Della Sala of Audioholics. The week after that, Brian Mitchell from Acoustics and I have a huge announcement to make. And then the week after that, SVS Sound is going to be with us, and we will be doing the winner announcement for the SVS X That Hi-Fi Girl giveaway. So stay tuned for all of that. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Yeah, super stoked. Keep listening. Don't listen to crap. Listen to awesome stuff. Listen to what moves you. And Hi-Fi is healthy, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And Jim, thank you so much for being my guest tonight.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you.
This was super awesome. All right, everybody. See you next week.